Now, in the course of this retreat, we will practice methods of pasi anfas, or awareness of the breath, methods of contemplation, muraqabah, methods of zikr, which is to say invocation of the divine being, utilizing various names. And these names are recited in the original Arabic. Arabic, as you may know, is an ancient language like Hebrew, Aramaic, Sanskrit, and as such it has a mantric quality, which is to say that the words themselves mean more than the definitions. The very resonance of the word, the vibration of the word carries meaning, and we will explore the qualities of these sounds through the breath, through the voice. And we will practice meditation, which is clearing the mind of all thought. These are the methods that we will be practicing. And it is important to remember, as Murshid always taught, that the essence of meditation is silence. And there will be opportunities for us in the course of this weekend to practice silence. Silence, which is such a rare experience in today's world, when we are constantly faced with a barrage of media, information, voices, a cacophony of sounds. And rarely do we find the chance to experience a deep silence. And yet silence is the essence of meditation. It opens one into worlds that are unavailable otherwise. What if one left language behind for a day, for a week, for a month? I can recall myself after practicing silence for 40 days, emerging from the silence and feeling that each utterance was such a commitment, that the silence was so precious that it felt as if I could not afford to waste any words. One felt then the preciousness of speech. Through silence one learns the value of words, because one feels that the breath is a pure gift. One is given through the breath pure essence, a dispensation from the source. And then one is given a choice. How does one take that unconditioned, simple, pure breath and deliver it forth into the world through sounds, through words that compose meaning, to transmit meaning? And each of us in our lives is in the process of, you might say, signing our signature, etching our name on the surface of reality. That is the legacy that we will leave behind. We're defining our message to the world in our words. Can you imagine that on the day of judgment, there will be a reckoning? We will look back over our lives and we will reckon who we have been, what we have experienced, what we have contributed. Imagine that on the day of judgment, our reckoning came in the form of listening to every word that we have spoken in our lives. We have been given a pure breath, and with that breath, the chance to give a message. What has been our message? That would be the index of our message to the world. Now we are, in the course of this retreat, endeavoring to cultivate presence. And there is in the tradition of the Naqshbandiya lineage of Sufism a code that has been passed down for the cultivation of presence. And there are really multiple contemplations, but 3 of these are paramount. And the first is Hosh Dar Dam. Hosh Dar Dam. Hosh means to be conscious, Dar, in, Dam, the breath. Be conscious of the breath. Observe the breath. Breathe with awareness. Whenever we find ourselves anxious, angry, depressed, distracted, usually it means that we have become absent to our breath rather than present. And by going through presence into the breath, one becomes re-centered, grounded, aware, awake, and present. So often we find ourselves agitated, our anger is aroused, or we are disgruntled, we are affected by some event in our lives, and we tend to react and lash out just at that moment. But that is just the moment when most of all we need to remember this lesson, to watch the breath. Bring it back to oneself. Bring it back to the breath. Rather than fixating on someone and what they did and what has occurred, bring it back to oneself, bring it back to one's breath. Turn within, recenter. So the first and last lesson is Hosh Dar Dam, the one virtue. On this path, the one and only virtue is awareness of the breath. Why is this the only virtue? Isn't compassionate action virtuous? Isn't considerate behavior virtuous? Yes, but all of this flows from the living, awake breath. When the breath is awake, we are sensitive, we are resonant, we are aware of others, we are in the flow, we are attuned. And when we are absent to the breath, although we may follow what we consider to be a moral and ethical code, it's artificial, it's an imposition on the situation, it's an abstraction. The awakened breath is the true and natural morality. So we will be, as often as we can throughout this weekend, remembering to return again and again to the rhythm of the breath. And we'll begin this morning with a meditation that will bring us into awareness of the different aspects of the breath. But even when we are not seated silently, internally in meditation, there's always an opportunity to return to awareness of the breath. And in fact, this is a basic principle of the spiritual path, which is that if one restricts one's practice to a certain session of meditation or prayer that one does at a particular time of day, of course it is important to have such a time, to have regularity of practice. But if that is the full extent of one's spiritual commitment, the path is a very long one. But on the other hand, when every encounter, every moment, every relationship, every situation becomes another opportunity to awaken and practice these modes of awareness, then the path becomes very rapid indeed. So throughout the day, to return to awareness of the breath is essential. The second of these principles, Nazar bar qadam. Nazar is one's glance, bar upon, qadam, the foot. Watch your step. Watch your step. What does it mean to say watch your step? It It was the great Persian sage Avicenna ibn Sina who indicated that gravity, the force that holds us to the planet, the force that impels the planets as they circulate around the sun, this great cosmic force of gravity is a species of ishq. And the soles of our feet are an organ of perception that ought to be considered as vital as the sight of our eyes and the hearing of our ears. Every footfall then becomes a planetary caress. And then one discovers that the verticality of the body means that we are interlocutors between earth and heaven. From below, through the soles of our feet, we're rooted in the earth, and above we receive the luminous effusions of the heavens, like a tree, drawing earth and water from below, light and air from above, and our vertical frame becomes the link between heaven and earth. This is our cosmic function. But we cannot fulfill this function unless we are able to maintain continuous groundedness in the earth with every footstep. So, nazar bar qadam, watch your step, feel the earth beneath you, and also watch the direction in which you are moving. In life, what is your purpose? What is your aim? Clarify your direction and move intentionally forward on the straight path toward the goal. It doesn't matter in the end how far the distance is to the goal. What really matters is that each and every footstep is directed in the right direction. The longest journey begins with a single footstep. Let us orient ourselves toward the cosmic orient, the dawning place of light, the place where light arises and shines out. Let that be our destination. Let each footfall be directed toward that goal. And the third of these principles, khilvat dar anjuman. Khilvat, isolation, retreat. This gathering could be called a khilvat. Khilvat dar anjuman. Retreat or solitude in the crowd, in society. Which is to say, to be alone with the alone. Now we find ourselves in life surrounded by so many sights and sounds and appearances and faces and forms that we become distracted and lost and caught up in the great whirlwind of impressions. But this principle reminds us to return always to the awareness of solitude, to feel that wherever one is, even in the greatest throng, the greatest crowd, that one is always essentially alone with the alone with the one who is the essence of all beings. And that being appears in every face, in every countenance. It's a wonderful verse in the Quran Sharif that says, فَإِنَّمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثُمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wheresoever you turn, there is the divine face. Wheresoever you turn, there is the divine face. So not to become distracted among all of the different appearances, but always to feel that one is intimately present to, alone with the one who is always present, who is closer to you than your own jugular vein, closer to you even than yourself. That being is always present, always watching, always listening, always knowing. And yet, paradoxically, ironically, we imagine ourselves to be lonely, separate, fragmented, adrift. If only we knew that we were surrounded and pervaded by the one who is intimately attentive to us in all moments. And we have only to reciprocally open our attention to this being for communication to flow. So these three principles, hosh dar dam, be conscious of the breath. Nazar bar qadam, watch your step. Khilvat dar anjuman, be alone with the alone. These will be guiding principles for us throughout this retreat.